Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the trial of Darrell Brooks? At the time making this video, the trial of Darrell Brooks is underway in Wisconsin. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, look at the summary of the trial so far, then offer my analysis. Darrell Brooks was born on February 2, 1982, and grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was raised by his mother and older sister. Darrell accumulated a significant criminal history, which started in 1999 and continued until 2021. Most of the charges against Darrell were in Wisconsin, but some were in Nevada and Georgia. Here are just some of the charges that Darrell Brooks has faced throughout the years: carrying a concealed weapon, aggravated battery, resisting or obstructing an officer, taking and driving a vehicle without consent, possessing various types of drugs like THC, methamphetamine, and cocaine, receiving stolen property, felony strangulation and suffocation, criminal damage to property, bail jumping, possession of a firearm by somebody convicted of a felony, and recklessly endangering safety. With a few of these offenses, Darrell was charged multiple times. In November 2021, Darrell Brooks was accused of murdering 6 people by driving a Ford Escape SUV through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He was charged with over 70 counts in connection with this incident, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 61 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. In February 2022, Darrell pleaded not guilty to all charges. Social media activity by Darrell Brooks indicates that he is not a fan of white people. He has advocated for violence against this group. This appears to be consistent with the parade attack. All of the people who Darrell allegedly killed were white. Now moving to a summary of the trial so far. As I mentioned at the time making this video, the trial of Darrell Brooks is underway. It started on October 3, 2022. The prosecution rested its case on October 20. Darrell chose to represent himself during his trial, therefore there probably won't be any meaningful defense presented. It is never a good idea for a defendant to represent themselves, but in this particular case, one could argue it is the functional equivalent of a guilty plea. So it's not just a bad decision, it's a horrible decision. I think Darrell chose this strategy in order to be disruptive in court, delay what appears to be inevitable convictions, and give himself material to work with to file an appeal. He also probably wanted a chance to speak and knew that he would have more opportunities representing himself. Darrell declared himself to be a sovereign citizen. I talked about this ideology before in several other videos. The sovereign citizen movement is an anti-government ideology that started in the United States and has spread to a number of other countries, like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The core of the ideology is that no individual can be governed without first providing explicit consent. Sovereign citizens do not recognize the authority of the government to give them orders. They will not accept restrictions on their freedom. To them, every person is a nation unto themselves. As a result, this group is often in conflict with the government. For example, they won't pay taxes, register their cars, or buy car insurance. These various activities are no longer a problem for Darrell Brooks, considering he is in jail and that place is not known for having a lot of motor vehicles, but he still found a way to get his ideology into court. Darrell argued that the state of Wisconsin cannot file a claim against him because it is not a person. He said only a living human brain can bring a lawsuit. The judge barred him from using the sovereign citizen defense. This hasn't stopped Darrell from refusing to acknowledge that his name is actually Darrell Brooks. Throughout the trial so far, Darrell has attracted attention with his antics. His behavior has been disruptive, disrespectful, and erratic. He has found himself removed from the courtroom several times, but he has always been allowed back in. Here are just a few examples of his antics. Item number 1. After the judge rejected Darrell's accusations that the state had coached his witnesses, Darrell pounded his fist on the table and stared at the judge without blinking. The judge took a break, saying that she was scared of Darrell. Right before this happened, Darrell was arguing in his typical manner, which featured him talking and not stopping when interrupted. At one point, when responding to the judge asking about whether he was accusing the prosecution of coaching, he said, quote, "It's obvious I'm not stupid," unquote. The judge immediately replied, quote, "Well, I disagree with that, sir," unquote. The judge was probably responding to the claim that the coaching was obvious, but some people have suggested maybe she was not. Item number 2, the judge admonished Darrell for intimidating a witness by rolling his eyes and making other facial movements. Darrell responded, quote, "You can't be serious right now. How are you even a judge?" unquote. Later, he said that he was tired of being in a courtroom that has no integrity. Item number 3, during testimony about paperwork found inside of the Ford Escape, Darrell mumbled under his breath and interrupted the court proceedings. The judge accused him of trying to create doubt in the jury. To be fair, that is kind of the job of the defense. Darrell responded to the judge, quote, "You're making a record of incorrect statements," unquote. I think Darrell's trying to make it seem as though he is collecting evidence which would allow him to accuse the judge of doing a poor job when he files an appeal. Item number 4, during one instance when Darrell was supposed to be calling his next witness, he kept arguing with the judge about an issue he wanted to address outside the presence of the jury. He reminded the judge that she took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and he even held up what he said was a copy of that oath. The judge kept telling him to call his next witness, but Darrell kept arguing. This went back and forth for several minutes. The judge was extremely patient. Darrell attempted to read what appeared to be legal documents regarding requirements for the judge to provide him a legal basis for her rulings. He claimed that the judge had not yet proven that the court has jurisdiction over him. This is a recurring theme as far as his defense. This appears to be another reference to the sovereign citizen ideology. Sovereign citizens don't believe that any court has jurisdiction over them, no matter what. So it's not clear what proof of jurisdiction Darrell is seeking. He will never be satisfied with any answer. Maybe that's the point. He's simply trying to prolong the proceedings indefinitely. Item number 5, Darrell Brooks offered an 11-minute opening statement. Here's a summary of what he said. Some of this is paraphrased. He started off by saying that obviously he did not have a well-prepared speech. Rather, he was speaking from the heart. There are always two sides to every story. The incident was very tragic. That is not lost on him. There are hurt people on both sides. It seems as though Darrell is trying to play the victim. The evidence will show that this incident was not planned or intentional. Darrell claimed to be getting emotional during this part of his statement and appeared to be using a tissue to dry his eyes for the rest of the speech. Darrell believes the jury will come to the right decision after weighing all the factors. Words like demon have been thrown around in this case. This is the time for the jury to see him for who he is. The jury has all the power in this case. I think Darrell was trying to help himself with this opening statement, but he actually said a number of things the jury could agree with, like viewing him as a demon and making the right decision. Now moving to my analysis. Mental health professionals determined that Darrell has a personality disorder, but did not declare him incompetent to stand trial. Darrell has intentionally disrupted the trial using a number of tactics, which appear to be related to his narcissistic characteristics. He is arrogant, grandiose, and self-centered. He has a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, and he has been extremely and repeatedly condescending. Most of his obnoxious, confrontational, rude, and disruptive behavior has been directed at the judge. Darrell has largely avoided being disrespectful to witnesses, although there were a few exceptions. Darrell kept saying that he was not attempting to delay the proceedings or attempting to be disrespectful. In one sense, he's correct. He's not attempting, he's actually completing. He has delayed and disrupted. Darrell has accused the state and the judge of doing exactly what he's doing. He said that the state is rushing through the proceedings, and the judge is rushing as well. Darrell makes it seem as though he's just trying to pay attention to every detail and honor the spirit of the legal system, when in fact he is trying to make a mockery of it. He has objected to just about every question that witnesses were asked, which leads me to believe he watched the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial. With all this in mind, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. I think that Darrell realizes that it's extremely likely he's going to be convicted and sentenced to prison for life. He believes his only chance of avoiding the penalty is to apply his sovereign citizen ideology. This ideology has a number of tactics which are attractive to people who are both argumentative and paranoid. For example, it advocates filing frivolous lawsuits and otherwise holding up the system with paperwork. Sovereign citizens refer to this as paper terrorism. They believe that through using special legal terms, some of which are made up, they can escape the consequences of their behavior when interacting with law enforcement or the courts. For example, they use terms like accepted for value, traveling in a private capacity, chargeback notice, common law, who is the victim, and where is your oath of office. Darrell Brooks specifically referenced the judge's oath to uphold the Constitution. Sovereign citizens believe they possess a special ability to see the truth, which other people cannot comprehend. It's like they have detected a loophole that everyone else for the last several hundred years has missed. This loophole is the key to immense wealth, power, freedom, and the ability to do whatever they want without consequences. This attitude leaves them in a permanent state of arguing with everyone, especially those representing the government. One could argue that Darrell has paranoid and antisocial personality features in addition to being narcissistic. As far as a potential personality profile, Darrell appears to be high in openness to experience. He certainly believes in a lot of fantasy. Low conscientiousness, he is impulsive and reckless. High extroversion, he is talkative and assertive. Extremely low agreeableness, Darrell is antagonistic, distrusting, and is not modest. He believes he has the authority of an entire country and doesn't have to answer for alleged murders. Darrell's neuroticism appears to be mid-range overall because he has both low and high facets of this trait. For example, his level of anxiety is low and his level of anger is high. Now moving to my final thoughts. In the United States, every defendant is entitled to a fair trial. On rare occasion, a defendant will try to beat the system. However, they often prove that the system actually works reasonably well. Darrell Brooks intended to insult everybody with his last chance to attract attention, but only ended up highlighting the integrity, tolerance, and patience of the judge and the dignity of the system overall. In addition, Darrell made the job of the jury remarkably easy. Darrell has essentially joined with the prosecution and removed any reasonable doubt. I can picture the jury entering deliberations and one member standing up and saying, "So, everybody good with guilty?" I don't know if Darrell is a good defense attorney, but he's a decent prosecutor, at least in his own case. Those are my thoughts on the trial of Darrell Brooks. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be as intriguing as an over-talkative, nameless country. Thanks for watching.